Everyone, to the December meeting of the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority. I officially call this meeting to order, and please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, by the way, it was ugly sweater day at the school.
Oh. That's all you could muster?
Yeah, I don't have to use that.
For the record, it was Ugly Sweater Day at the school.
It was the best I could do.
That one hardly.
You must have a nice closet. Okay. Okay, under public comments today, we'll move right into that. Any member of the public may address the Solid Waste Management Authority on any matter on or off the agenda. After receiving recognition from myself, please give your name and city or county residency for the record. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Is there any public comment this afternoon?
Good afternoon. I'm Elizabeth Henry. I live in the county. I meant to write a speech, but I didn't quite get to it. But what it would have been about is thank yous to the three of you for this year. This has been such a demanding and difficult year. I can't believe that we all made it through some of the meetings. But, you know, I really appreciate public servants who read their material, know the facts, listen to people. You know, we can see you when you're sitting there facing us. So we can tell whether, you know, you're zoning out or whether you're paying attention to us. And I've always felt that you are. And you make decisions based on facts and common sense. Come on, Ron, once in a while. No, I don't mean to get real flowery, but you don't know what a difference it makes. And I mean, this is my almost third year of coming here. And, you know, so I've seen what can happen when public servants aren't that way and public isn't treated well. So I wish you all would come back next year. Is there anything that can be done about that? I'm looking at you, Mr. Hawley.
3 minutes up.
Oh, shucks.
No.
Can I get on down on my knees?
No,
Would that help? No.
Thank you for your comments.
No, I really, really appreciate it. I know there are a lot of people that really appreciate the three of you, so thank you very, very much.
Thank you. And my thanks go out to all of you that have been so active over the last couple of years.
Yeah, you guys should get the medals. We have to be here. You don't have to be here.
Thanks again. Okay, any other public comment? Okay, seeing no other public comment, we'll move on with our agenda. Under our open session items, we have consent agenda, approval of the minutes from the regular session of Tuesday, November 17th, 2015, approval and allocation of 5 authority-directed bin pulls for use at the Gasky and Klamath transfer stations before 31st of December 2015, and approval of a budget transfer in the amount of $12. So that is our consent agenda. Any public comment on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing no public comment on the consent agenda, we'll bring it back.
I move that we approve the consent agenda items 1-1 through 1-3.
Okay, the consent agenda has been, there's been a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as a whole. Any other comments or discussion?
You better pull the
Okay,
vote
very
for
good.
that $12.
Yeah, we do have $12 on that. Would you please poll the vote?
Commissioner Gastineau?
Yes.
Commissioner Hawley?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Okay, thank you. Okay, our discussion items today, we have very few. Landfill post-closure, we have no items, nor do we have any items on the collections franchise or the transfer station. Under other general solid waste authority matters, we have 5.1, introduction of the authority's facilities and programs coordinator, Kayleen Warner.
It is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce to you Kayleen Warner, our new facilities and programs coordinator. Care to say a few words?
I just want to thank all of you for making me feel so welcome already in this wonderful community. I'm really looking forward to being part of the team at the authority already. I just feel like I'm already part of the great work they're doing there, and I hope that as you see me around town, you'll come up and introduce yourself to me again, because I probably won't remember your name. And just give me all the great tips on all the wonderful things to do here.
Thank you. When I was the HR director with the school district, we'd say, not only do we have an excellent retirement plan, but also here you'll age more quickly. Okay. But welcome. And we're going to be, we're really appreciative of having your expertise here and the extra help. I know that Mr. Ward's already enjoying some of that benefit. So thanks again for being here. Okay, number 5.2, this is consideration of an appeal by Randall South regarding the level of service at 1175 Lakeview. Mr. Ward.
Mr. South did send an email saying that he is now living outside the state and he is no longer responsible for managing the property that is the subject of this appeal. There in your agenda packet is a series of correspondence from Mr. South in which we did seek clarity in terms of what exactly he was appealing. In the follow-up correspondence, we believe that his main issue is the reason for the first recommendation, which is based upon this written correspondence that the board determined that the single issue to be decided with respect to this appeal is, what is the basic level of service required to be provided by landlords or responsible parties to each of their rent-paying tenants? The reason why we need to narrow the focus of this discussion is that his emails were fairly broad-ranging, and many of the issues that were raised really had little or nothing to do with the authority ordinances. Normally, the appeals process, as described in the ordinance, is an appeal for a fine or for some kind of fiscal penalty or for an adjustment of service, all of which would be allowed under the ordinances, but none of which that the authority did. All that happened were we sent a couple letters to Mr. South, who was at the time managing a property at 1175 Lakeview Drive, and this was a rental property, and we were trying to clarify that part of the expectation under the authority ordinances is that each rent-paying tenant gets trash service. It can be provided either by Recology Del Norte or the landlord can provide that trash service. But there isn't any room for arguing, no, that requirement doesn't apply to us, or normally the tenant should be given 32 gallons of trash service, but in this case they don't get that much because there aren't provisions in the ordinance for adjusting those amounts. And so that is the first recommended action, that the board clarify that this is the issue to be decided. But considering that Mr. South has moved and he is no longer responsible for this property, another possibility would be that the board find that Mr. South is no longer a responsible party for managing 1175 Lakeview Drive as a rental property, and that there is no longer a basis for this appeal as the interpretation of Ordinance 2008-01 is directed to the responsible property for this property as a rental. So that's another option. I think actually it's best, since we've already gone to the level of effort we have to try to clarify these issues, to go ahead and make a determination based on the issues he was appealing. But another option is to simply say there is no longer standing to have this appeal.
Okay,
So
thank you.
I'll pause there and then we'll follow.
Well, any questions of Mr. Ward on this? Mr. McClure?
Yeah, I bought into the argument about the 32 gallon, but my confusion comes when we actually we also do a 20 gallon for private homeowners, right?
For an individual single, but yes, if you're paying for your own service and you're not a landlord providing for somebody else's service, you can get a 20-gallon cart. But under the franchise, the basic level of service is a 32-gallon cart plus at least 32 gallons of
The language is actually in
recycling.
there as a rental. Each unit is 32 gallons.
It is.
So that begs the question of, I don't know how to, it begs the question to me on what is a unit compared to if I'm subletting a room in my house? When does it trigger as a 32-gallon unit?
Well, I think it might be worth separating those two issues. One, let me affirm that I think that is a perfectly valid avenue of inquiry and of policymaking for this board to look at whether or not you want to have a difference between, say, renting an apartment or half of a duplex versus renting a room in a house. Perfectly reasonable discussion. But this correspondence is related to the ordinance that's in place at the time of the appeal. So I think there's the judicial responsibility to say, all right, this is what the ordinance says, this is what it really says, and then if you want to modify that, then have that as a separate action, would be my recommendation.
You know, my only question that I was asking myself in reading over the materials and listening to Mr. South at last month's meeting was really, why does this ordinance exist? And as far as I can tell, it exists because you have renters in a one-down position so that landlords could say, you may not use my trash service. And renters oftentimes are not in a position really to go back and forth to the transfer station or to have their own. And then we end up with blighted properties, blighted with trash. I mean, that's really the end result that we're looking for ongoing. And that argument, I don't think, has changed. So, but I
Agreed. The name of this ordinance is the Solid Waste and Recycling Responsibility Ordinance. And the concept was that at the time these ordinances were adopted, that a lot of the illegal dumping and blight associated with that were associated with rental properties. And landlords would regularly say, well, it's not my responsibility to have garbage service for my tenants. Sure, I have to do water and sewer, but garbage is completely different. So as we did a series of public meetings, we tried to solicit input from the general community, but it was decided as a result of those meetings that the best approach, rather than having mandatory collection for every house in the county, was that if you were a landlord, if you were renting, that it was your responsibility to provide trash service for the tenant. And the basic level of trash service was set up as this 32 gallons plus an equivalent amount of recycling. It's important to note that the purpose of this is really so that if there is a problem, we have tools to use to fix the problem. It's not necessarily that we're going out after every landlord and saying, okay, what is your service and is this a problem? But if there's a rental property and there's trash accumulation, this board should have the tools to make sure that we can address that problem. And that's what is in these ordinances.
And I think we need to get back to the specific complaint, is that he had too small a receptacle for the garbage that he was putting out, and it was overflowing. And that's where it all came about, regardless if it's a 20 or 32.
Right.
We have to, abate that blight coming over. So it's right back to that.
And he was claiming that that was hazardous waste that he had set aside.
Right, that was also part of his claim, that some of the trash that, you have pictures in your agenda packet.
Yeah, they're
and
pretty
there were
fuzzy,
containers that
don't
were well outside the trash can. And he was saying, in his correspondence, that that was awaiting the household hazardous waste collection by Recology. Well, of course, there is no
such
collection
thing.
of household
Right.
hazardous waste.
And I also understand that the ordinance also says that the trash receptacles cannot be out on the curb 24/7. They should be back at the house, out of sight. And so in his correspondence, he stated that they stayed out there the whole time because, they wanted to make sure the trash got picked up. So there's another thing that he was violating at the time. So, the termination, you just send a nice letter to him saying, hey, you're not have enough trash pickup, and so you should just go up to another $5 a month on that for a 32. And he came back with every allegation that was in the book. So, his appeal shouldn't be
Yeah.
granted. It's not.
Well, at this point, too, I want to clarify, Mr. South has not really realized any tangible loss as a result of this. He's only been notified of what his responsibility is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so is there any public comment on this?
Elizabeth Henry again from the county. I hope you will officially deny the appeal. I think it's wonderful that this ordinance is being used. As you remember, most of 2014 was spent trying to keep this ordinance and another one alive, and because we felt they were useful, one of the arguments was that they're never used and therefore we don't need it. But, you know, even if it's used once or twice, I mean, it's good to have it there, to have something to work off of. And so I'm really pleased to see that. I'm really pleased the ordinance survived. The other thing, I just feel like I have to say that in case any member of the public has read the documents or heard Mr. South, I don't know that I've ever heard anything so offensive and so off the topic. His remarks have been, I think, terrible the last couple of meetings he was at. I think the written material is also really offensive. I know you probably can't do anything about it, but to me, it borders on slander. I know public officials can be, you know, called all kinds of things, but I don't know that staff people can, and I'm really offended by some of the things he said in the material, and I'm very grateful that he's moved. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Catherine Murray, I'm a resident of the county, and I appreciate the comments that the board had made regarding this topic and the last speaker's comments. This ordinance is a very valuable tool, and that I'm really grateful that we kept it. It really is a very good tool for keeping blight out of the city and the county, so I appreciate us still having it, and I think that you'll do the right thing in denying the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? Okay, seeing no other public comment, we'll go ahead and bring this back to the board and ask if there's any further discussion. If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll move that we deny Mr. South's appeal, pending no real evidence that he was, as you said, slighted by the authority. So let's just short it up. I motion that we deny the appeal.
Second?
Um,
Do you
con-
want to have findings in there?
Well, the finding number 4 would be helpful.
Yeah, that's what I
And
thought.
finding number 4.
Yeah, which is confirmed that under Authority Ordinance 2008-01, the basic level of collection services for rental properties is weekly collection of 32 gallons of trash and at least 32 gallons of recyclable materials for each tenant unit to be provided either through Recology Del Norte or by the responsible party for that property.
So noted. I will amend my appeal to include that
Second?
copy there.
Okay, it's moved and seconded to deny the appeal and affirm ordinance 2008-01. Any other discussion? Okay, would you please poll the vote?
Commissioner Hawley?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Commissioner Gastineau?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, boy, we're already on the directors and treasurers reports. So we have, we'll ask for public comment once in all these under the directors and treasurers reports, so we'll go ahead and go through these. 6.1 is the director's report, Mr. Ward.
So following her appointment as Public Commissioner and election as Authority Secretary, Pat Black was not approved by the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors. After discussing this issue with Chair Hawley, it seemed that the most appropriate action would be to wait until the board changes in January and February and to allow that new authority board to address this issue. They can do so either by selecting the next public commissioner or by proposing modifications to the process by which the public commissioner is appointed and approved. But it's only a delay of a few months, and the alternative would be to go through the process again and be mid-process as the board was changing. So I think you can all understand, might as well wait a few months. I think that was a wise action by the chair.
I want to thank Mrs. Black for her tenure as a solid waste management authority person. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, sir.
That's okay. I also am grateful. Oh, and also a bit of clarification. I did consult with our legal counsel, Martha Rice, about Ms. Black's standing as a task force member. And essentially, although she did offer via email her resignation based on the discussion of ethics and the potential for a perception of conflict of interest, she actually never served on the task force and as a commissioner at the same time, as the last few task force meetings have not met because of a lack of quorum. So as there was no official acceptance of her resignation, Ms. Rice has said that it would be okay for her to rescind that resignation and to continue on the task force. And she has also sent an email to me offering to continue on the task force. So my interpretation, all of those things considered, are that Pat Black is still on the solid waste task force.
I have a procedural question. Since she was not approved by the Board of Supervisors, are any of the motions or seconds that she did in the last meeting, are they still valid? Was she officially a commissioner until both parties said that she was?
My opinion is that, yes, all of those actions were valid. The way that the JPA is written is that annually the public member has to be confirmed or approved, and if they're not, then they can't sit any longer. So I think she was duly appointed to that seat until the time that the Board of Supervisors failed to approve her appointment.
Good question. Thank you.
Okay. Continuing on, Keith Estes, who has served as refuse site attendant for the authority since August 2012, has accepted employment with another agency and will end his employment with the authority later this month. Mr. Estes was a significant help during our periods of major staff transition, providing additional assistance associated with billing and payments for about 9 months. We all wish him the best in his future endeavors. And for the coming month, Administrative Assistant Lisa Babcock will be coordinating with current staff to fill all of his shifts. As I mentioned last month, following the lack of response to the request for proposals to provide aerial survey services for the Crescent City landfill, I will be meeting with Dick Davis later this week to negotiate an agreement to complete these survey services in 2016, and that negotiated agreement will come back to the board for approval. Regarding finances and audits, we have been working with Patel and Associates, and staff have been responding to information requests to assist them in completion of the audit. Hambro WSG is continuing their negotiations with the Mattress Recycling Council. At this point, it appears that in 2016, there will be at least 2 mattress collection events at the Del Norte County Transfer Station, and one of them will be on our household hazardous waste collection event. And in addition, at this point in time, I'm considering that we will probably do advertising to let people know that starting in 2016, if you buy a new mattress and have it delivered to your house, if you just ask that the old mattress be taken away, it is a requirement under law that the party delivering the mattress will have to take the old one away at no charge, and that can be recycled through the transfer station. Following discussions with Jessica Mercado and the board of the Del Norte Economic Development Corporation, staff are continuing to support their efforts to prepare a redesignation application for the North Coast Recycling Market Development Zone. I mentioned this briefly last meeting. Essentially, this is a zone where technical assistance and low-interest loans are made available to businesses that can use recycled materials as part of their manufacturing or packaging process. As this is an economic development program, it was always in order for the Solid Waste Authority to provide those services, we needed to actually hire a person who was working in economic development, whereas for the Del Norte EDC, they can make a strong case that they already have people doing that. So we might be able to continue the program at a lower overall cost to the community. In the coming month, staff will be working with Lawrence and Associates to complete the entry of the landfill water quality data into the GeoTracker system, and to work with legal counsel, county staff, and Lawrence and Associates to prepare for collecting water samples from residential wells adjacent to the landfill property. This is part of our ongoing appeal of our waste discharge requirements fee. Let's see. We will continue to work with Patel and Associates until the audit for fiscal year 14-15 is completed. We will be working on the information requests and beginning negotiations between the Del Norte Solid Waste Management Authority's Employees Union to negotiate a new working agreement, and the current agreement expires in March 2016. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions? Okay, thank you,
Okay,
Ted.
moving on.
Please.
Next one is the treasurer's report, and bottom line is our cash in the bank is about $740,511, plus $198,177 as the last month's rent for the transfer station. Our expenditures are pretty much in line with what we'd expect at this time of the year. Looking at the claims approved by the director, once again, the largest payment goes to Hambros for their services. We very much continue to appreciate those. We have insurance payments that were due. You can see the State Water Resources Control Board payment, partial payment, which you approved last month, is in there, as well as a payment to Lawrence and Associates, and technical support for our software. Looking through the authority reports, you can see that our accounts receivable is in good order, and that in general, in terms of revenues, we, for the franchise fees, we're about $12,085 ahead of budget, so that's a little bit over 10% ahead of budget, and our authority revenue through the transfer station is 6.4% ahead of budget, and overall, we're about $40,000 ahead of budget. But it's worth noting that, of course, January and February and December tend to be the slowest months of the year at the transfer station, so we can expect a dip in revenues during the next few months.
Okay, thank you. So that's completes your report. Okay, is there any public comment on Mr. Ward's report? Okay, seeing no public comment?
I have nothing on
Anything?
just future agenda.
Okay, very good. We will be going into closed session, but I think that we don't have a placeholder for this, but did you
I
have
just
something?
wanted to bring up while Lori was here, because I kind of have a desire or a dream that we could come up with a little 2 or 3 day activity packet that we could decide which group of children, like if we were going to target 4th graders, 5th graders, 6th graders, and that we could work with solid waste and Recology and Hambros and actually make up a plan for kids to learn about what we're doing and to then maybe tour each of the facilities. It would be really cool if we just targeted kids, because I think that sometimes if we can get the kids educated, the parents will follow, you know, so just of all of the vast things that we do, because it's not just putting that paper wrapper into your trash can. It's a whole bigger process. And I just think that maybe we could tip some kids off to what's happening, because I know when I was a kid, I loved to go to the dump. I mean, that was like, you know, I liked it, so.
That was the dump, you know, transfer station's a little different.
I even like it. I'm always peeking in there to see if there's anything of value, you know. I'm just.
Okay, thank you.
But,
Very,
yeah.
very good. Any other comments or future agenda items you'd like to see?
Good, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to be adjourning, going to closed session items, and the singular item is to try and complete Mr. Ward's evaluation. And we don't anticipate reporting anything out, but you're welcome to stay here just in case. Otherwise, we will see you in January.
And do we know that date?
Yes, sir.
I mistakenly did not put the correct date on the agenda. The next authority meeting is scheduled for January 19th, 2016.
16. Very good. Thank you all for coming again today, and look forward to seeing you here on the 16th of January, 19th of January.
I'm sorry, I
Yes, sir.
neglected to mention this. And thanks to Catherine Brewer for remembering this. We do this every year, and also thanks to Hambro WSG and Recology, because we do continue to have tree cycling each year. So those of you who have holiday trees at home, through the end of January of 2016. We do accept those for no charge, 1 tree per family. Please remove all tinsel and all metal stands and all decorations. A little bit of flocking is okay, but if you put a whole bunch on, it'll just be trash. But we do take 1 holiday tree per family for free, thanks to Hamburg WSG. And for Recology customers, they can call Recology and make arrangements for that tree to be collected.
Okay, I'm going to jump in with something that's self-evident. We're talking about a wooden tree, right?
Thank you for
Okay.
pointing that out. Yes,
All right. I
absolutely,
just wanna
that's what
make
we're
sure.
talking about.
I've got a couple of the other kind I'd like to give you. Okay, thank you. Anything else to come before us? Okay, we're going to move into closed session now. Thanks again.